Who in the world is buying gold and silver? Well, let's find out. Hi, this is Silver Dave. If you're watching this video, you are most likely not yet subscribed. Only 25% of my viewers are subscribed. So if you haven't subscribed, click the like button and click the subscribe button and the bell notification. And I post daily content, so stay up to date. So who in the world is buying gold and silver? Well, I was wondering about this. I was thinking, I know most of my viewers are from the United States. But I think that is mainly because I've been doing my content in English. If I did my content in French or German, then my viewers would be different. However, the North American viewers, right, from both the United States and Canada make up only about 53% of all of my viewers. And the rest is from the rest of the world. So half of my viewers are from the rest of the world. And I was thinking, who is watching my videos? Because the Google data, there's not enough viewers across any particular country to flag them up, except for the United States and Switzerland. So I was wondering, and I decided to look up on Google Trends. I was like, who is looking at gold right now as an investment and as a preservation of wealth? So I looked it up on Google Trends, and I decided to look at basically over since December, who has been looking at gold and silver and stocks and Bitcoin, and what countries do these different categories rank. You can see I have gold search term, stock search term, Dow Jones, Bitcoin, silver. Well, I have the answer. The answer is not the United States, which is quite funny. Most gold is in the United Arab Emirates. People are searching for gold. And India and Saudi Arabia, Malaysia and Indonesia. So that's quite interesting. And there's some context around it. I believe that in the Middle East, and speaking to some of my viewers, gold is valued historically as a very important form of money. And in India too, it's valued as an important form of money. But also there's this festival called there's this religious holiday called Diwali. And I believe that in India during that period, people buy and gift gold. So there's a lot of demand, and it's coming. I don't know the exact date. I'm sorry. Do not be offended. But I believe that during that period, gold is traded a lot in India and demand spikes. There's a seasonality aspect to gold. When they say seasonality aspect, there are certain holidays in certain countries where people trade and buy gold. So do I think that... So that's quite interesting. Most of my viewers are from the United States, but United States gold is not one of the most ranked searched items. What is most ranked is stocks. That means that despite everything that's happened in the world, the pandemic, everything, most of my North American and European viewers, except for the German ones, are looking at stocks. And what's also interesting is that not everybody's looking at Bitcoin. Bitcoin is being looked at in countries where there is extremely, extremely high inflation. And I'm wondering why. I'm like, why is Bitcoin being looked at so highly in Latin America and Turkey? Well, I think part of the reason is, despite the fact, that gold is a preservation of wealth, I think in both countries, they realize gold is a preservation of wealth. But gold is very difficult. I mean, you cannot easily transfer gold out of your country. That's what I was thinking, if you have physical gold and you're in a country, you have a hard time fleeing with that gold. You can carry it on you, but if you have Bitcoin, it bypasses the country borders. And I believe that both of these, in Latin America and in Turkey, there are strict monetary controls to prevent you from taking gold and other things out of the country. because the country realizes that you can buy things with gold. If you're a central bank in one of these countries, you do not want people buying up gold and then taking it out of your country. What you're trying to do most likely is you're trying to shore up your central bank reserves with real money instead of the paper currency that's been devalued in your country at the moment. And because you need to buy oil as a country, you need to trade. You don't necessarily need to just export, but you need to import goods. A lot of these countries, they do need to import oil or other raw materials. And if they cannot have dollars, or they don't have access to dollars, or if their own currency is being devalued to an extreme extent that they cannot exchange it at a favorable exchange rate for dollars, then their sort of only choice is to hold gold and then trade gold for dollars. And in that scenario, you do not want people to run away with gold in your country. Like, you do not want them to buy up gold and run out of the country with it. So maybe that's why. I believe Brazil is also a country with a lot of tax. So maybe one of the reasons why, they are having a lot of interest in Bitcoin is because Bitcoin is very hard to trace for many government agencies. At least if you're trying to cross a border, Bitcoin, you can send it separate to your person. It's not so hard to trace. That means that they cannot trace it. It just means that if you want to go across a border and you want to take your money with you, then Bitcoin is a better option actually than gold, because gold you have to physically carry it with you. And it also means that if you are stopped at a border and the border guards are like, hey, we want your gold and we're not letting you leave with your gold or your silver, then you would potentially be stuck. So yeah, so these two countries, possibly why Bitcoin is more interesting than gold is because there is a need to flee. That's not a great thing. Yeah, well, so there are use cases where Bitcoin is better. Like if you have to run away from your country, you might be better off transferring all your wealth into Bitcoin and then sending it, and then just remembering your private key and then running away. That's one option of how to run away with Bitcoin. Anyways, yeah, that's probably one of the reasons. Do I think that there's a lot of hype around gold? I don't think there's a lot of hype around gold, but I do think that there is growing interest in gold. And what do I mean by that? I mean, I don't have it printed out here, but when I look at the United States and Europe, most mainstream investors have not jumped in on gold. There's no massive public interest in holding gold. Most people are interested in buying into the stock market. And I think that's kind of the point. It's not so much that gold is overvalued at the moment, but rather the currency is somewhat overvalued. There are many currencies that are slightly overvalued, I think, and relative to gold. And there are many currencies that are, how would you say, and there's also many markets that I feel are overvalued relative to gold. Specifically, the stock market is currently, I feel like they've priced in too much optimism in the stock market, and we are potentially up for a very bad correction if there's too much optimism. And I want the situation to end. I want everybody to go back to normal, living their lives. But I feel like we're too optimistic about it, and we've not taken considered that it could take much longer than expected. So, how much longer? I think a lot of people want it to be over by January next year. And I'm thinking that possibly, some type of jobs are never going to come back, like a lot of service industry jobs and restaurant jobs like servers and so on. People's consumer habits have changed during this period. People are not thinking about big vacations. People are thinking about small vacations, and they realize they can save money. And they're like, oh, wow, saving money is actually not so bad. And yeah, because you don't know what's going to happen next. There's a lot of uncertainty. So yeah, but I think over time we're going to see more interest in gold, and as there's more interest in gold, I think people will start correcting the value of gold and bringing it to its correct valuation relative to the stock market. why do I think the stock market is overvalued, and why do I think some currencies in the world are overvalued? Well, to give you some context, I buy gold in Swiss francs because I'm in Switzerland. And currently, when I look at the Swiss franc, Switzerland is not doing much better than the rest of the, I would say, Western Europe and North America. We're actually doing worse in terms of pandemic management, and we have somewhat more economic damage. Despite being on the balance sheet, we seem quite cash flow positive and we're quite healthy in that sense. But in terms of growth and all those other factors, we're going to see a recession. And however, however, the Swiss currency is holding itself up really strongly, and we can see it here. So I printed out this other graph, which shows you like the 6 months, the 6 month gold price and the evolution of gold price. And you can see that like the dollar was in end of July, there was a massive bull rally and then massive correction. I'll even call this a correction. And then we're somewhat in a sort of a band, we're in this band between below 2000 but above 1850. And gold has been moving in this range, right? It's moving a little bit up, it's been moving a little bit down. But this isn't such a strong downward trend. And that kind of tells you that, gold is holding its own against the dollar. But the question is, why is it holding itself against the dollar? Well, the answer is pretty simple. It's because the dollar is devaluating. And I can see it clearly when I look at the gold to Swiss franc price. And I can see that, I don't even need to draw graphs on here or lines. You can see it's in the bear trend. It is slowly but steadily moving downwards. And I think this reveals something. It reveals that the dollar is actually, it's not so much that gold is getting stronger or gold's value has really changed relative to what it can buy over this period. The real inflation is almost at zero. Even in some cases, in some deflationary forces. It's really that the dollar is being devalued quite a bit. And what you see here, for example, the Swiss franc, they haven't started devaluing the dollar as strongly as the Swiss franc as strongly as the dollar. And what you're seeing is that essentially the Swiss franc is gaining value on gold. Of course, many of the viewers, I know that many of my viewers are going to tell me, yes, but fiat currencies will die. I agree with you. Fiat currencies will die. But the question is, will it die tomorrow? Like today we are 16th of November, I think. 16th of November, so Sunday was 15th. Will the dollar die on the 17th of November? No, I don't think the dollar will die on the 17th of November. Will it die on the 17th of December? No, I don't think so either. Will the Swiss franc go away on the 17th of December? No. Do I think by next year, middle of next year, it'll go away? No, it's not going to go away. What I think will happen is there is going to be a gradual devaluation of the dollar relative to monetary metals. And I think that other currencies are going to resist trying to devalue their currency relative to follow suit with the dollar and to devalue their currency too at the same time. But I don't think they have a choice, because it means that if you don't follow suit with the dollar, you're not going to export to the United States, because all of a sudden, like I can tell you that from July to November, Swiss exports cost American consumers, almost 15% more to buy. That's a huge, huge, huge change, right? If you're buying something valued in Swiss francs, because when it's produced in Switzerland, it's going to be charged in Swiss francs, it's going to be much more expensive. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, all Swiss products with my dollars, I can buy like 10% less than what I used to be able to do. So the Swiss franc gain, so it's divided by 0.9, which comes out to be, I think, 13%. So Swiss franc is 13% more expensive than the dollar. That's a big change if you think about it. If the United States imports a lot of its products and nobody follows suit with the United States in devaluing their currencies, that means all the fiat currencies, they're going to sell less. And potentially they're also in a recession. The Switzerland is going to go into a recession. And clearly, as an export economy, they want to export. And in order to maintain their employment at an acceptable level, so you don't have social unrest and so on, they will need to devalue the Swiss franc. And they've been trying, but they have limited instruments and they cannot, they're not a major economy, so they're a tiny economy, so they cannot devalue it so quickly. They're trying to, and I think slowly over time they're going to be able to do it, but it's more dependent on what the Federal Reserve does, and the Federal Reserve is pretty much on a money printing spree because they really also don't have a choice. Do I think that, gold's, like what you can buy with gold is going to change, like the intrinsic value? Let's say we measure gold not in terms of dollars, but we measure gold in terms of like cows that you can buy, or real life things like, like a house, a vehicle, and you're to calculate an amount of gold it will take to buy another asset, or farmland and so on. Well, it's not going to change. I don't think it will change. What will change is the dollar amount, but both gold and whatever other asset, the dollar indicator will just either stay relatively flat as the dollar decreases. So actually, it will increase. it will, you're going to see that actually your purchasing power, whatever you earned before, is not going to change so much. But there will be inflationary pressure on the overall economy. And will that completely destroy the economy? No, not. It takes a long time for inflation to destroy an economy. And you might be thinking of the catastrophe of the Weimar Republic after the First World War. Well, think about it. The amount of years it took between the First World War's end until the start of the Second World War, it wasn't instant. It was like a 10-year period. So to destroy a currency and an economy completely, it takes you years. You have to do a lot of damage over a long time. And you could think that, yeah, but we've been doing it since 2008. Kind of, but not so much. I mean, we didn't have any external shocks that sort of destabilized the house of cards that they were building. And as long as you don't have that external shock, the house of cards stays upright, right? It's just very fragile, and it's not a good idea. When it will topple, nobody knows. So that's the thing. What I want to say really is it's not so much if you are earning in dollars, essentially, it's a good idea to pick up a little bit of gold and silver. If you're not earning in dollars, this is more for my international viewers because I see that, there's interest globally in who is buying gold and silver. I think depending on your country's monetary policy, you need to decide whether it's a good idea to buy gold and silver. For me personally, because I earn in Swiss francs, gold and silver is really right now on a discount. Because you can look at it like right now, my price for gold and silver is at 1724, right? And just as a reference, about 6 months ago, the dollar and the Swiss franc was trading on par. And what happens usually is the Swiss franc typically lags behind the dollar, and eventually the Swiss franc tends to reach parity with the dollar, right? If eventually the Swiss franc goes into, let's say, the dollar, right, it doesn't ever break $2,000 gold, and it stays in the 1800s range. And would I be losing value on my stack because I bought it in Swiss francs? No, I've preserved my purchasing power, because eventually the Swiss franc will meet parity with the dollar and it will approach the dollar price. That's a huge gain for me. Now, this is why I tell my viewers, you have to be aware of your local situation. This is what makes it complicated. The complications are, depending on the fiat currency you earn, you might have a different buying strategy than everybody else. And I think that because the Swiss franc and the Swiss economy is relatively similar to not in terms of scale, but in terms of structure, and also in terms of the markets they trade with, it's relatively similar to the US market. And also the Swiss franc tends to follow the US monetary policies. I have a very similar strategy to most of my American viewers, with some differences in that, first of all, I think going forwards, I'll be picking up more gold. I've been saying this a lot of times, is that I like silver. I think silver has great potential. Silver is on a huge discount for Swiss francs, but none of the dealers are pricing that in. They don't want to price it in because nobody wants to be selling 20 Swiss franc silver in Switzerland because they know that the Swiss franc is going to go down. But they're willing to sell like some old gold, you know, at spot because banks are taking it at the spot price and so on. So they're not too worried. But when they realize silver is getting so cheap in Swiss franc, it's ridiculous. Silver in Swiss franc values is 22 Swiss francs, right? Spot. But I challenge you to go out there in Switzerland to find 22 Swiss francs an ounce silver. You will not find 22 Swiss francs an ounce silver because everybody knows that the Swiss franc is overvalued right now, and at 22 Swiss francs an ounce of silver is a ridiculous price in this environment. It's just so ridiculous. I mean, I look at what people are buying and selling silver ounces on sort of eBay-like sites, the local ones we have, and it's not like 22 Swiss francs an ounce of silver. It's closer to 30 to 40 Swiss francs an ounce of silver, because everybody's factoring in that, you know, the Swiss franc is way overvalued, and yeah, and it's they will have to devalue it, or the dollar will gain value, or the Swiss franc will lose more value. Either way, it will be readjusted and it should be higher. That's what people are factoring in. Like I said in my previous video, if I buy a tube of Silver Eagles, I'm paying like $38 a piece for a 20 pack. So it's not cheap. It's like close to numismatic value, to a numismatic coin value, and it's not a numismatic coin. I bought these at 25 Swiss francs, a little bit less, 24-ish Swiss francs a piece, and which translates to $26 a piece for physical silver, which is pretty good. But I got them off an individual before sort of the current craze, and before people are really thinking that like the Swiss franc, it's going to go into a strong bear market. These things are, right now, if I was to sell them, I'd probably be able to get like 30 plus for each one of them. But, you know, I stack for the long term, so they're going to stay. They're definitely going to stay for a long time. Am I going to pick up more gold? Like I said, yes, I want to finish up to 4 ounces of gold by the end of the year, and I think I'll pick up another piece of platinum before the end of the year. Why am I doing it? Like I said, you know, if the Swiss franc is lower than the dollar and I'm able to buy gold on a dip in Swiss franc terms, it's on sale. It's like a fire sale. Let me put it like this. If you're an American viewer and today I approach you and I tell you, you know, you can buy gold per ounce for $1,700, would you buy it? And I'm almost for sure most of my viewers watching this right now would say, hell yeah, it's on sale. If I told you could buy silver for $22 an ounce, would you buy it? I think most of my viewers would start backing up the truck. So why then would I not do it if right now, right, I know that my currency is not worth $0.09. It will be readjusted because essentially we're in a massive recession in Switzerland, and the only thing they've done is they resisted doing QE, but they can't resist forever because they'll need to fund public programs. So they will have to readjust. They have no choice. The central government and central banks are trying, but they're kind of like, they don't have as much ammo as the Americans, so it takes them more time to do it. So yeah, if I told you could buy $22 an ounce, most people watching this video will back up the truck. And if I told you could buy for 17,000 an ounce of gold, I think most people in this watching this video will be like, yeah, definitely will back up the truck. Of course, gold was trading less, but even in the low point before, it was still like 1,700 something for me, at least, in Swiss francs. That's because the Swiss franc has been so strong during this period, and the dollar has just been continuously weakening. So yeah, that's my take. So remember, right now I would say gold isn't hyped all over the world. There are certain places that are realizing gold is of real value before others. Notably in Western Europe and North America, it's the Germans that are doing it. I'm like, okay, well, Germans are pretty sensible people. They're going to buy more gold. And also I've seen that, that most certain safe haven currencies or countries that can't readjust their currency so quickly, they are lagging. They will have to do it sooner or later. And for people earning money in those currencies, gold is on sale. It's on the fire sale, but nobody's picking it up right now. So if you are an international viewer not based in the United States, right now might be a good time. And if your currency is still strong, right now it might be a good time to buy gold and silver. Just saying. That's what I'm doing. I've convinced a few friends to start like buying a little bit. I don't think you should buy a lot. You don't need to buy a lot. Just take a little bit at a time and then get comfortable buying a little bit of gold. In Switzerland, we have the advantage of having these 20 Swiss franc coins, which means that you can get into it quite easily for less than 350 Swiss francs, which comes out to be about $380. And if I say, yeah, I remember when I exited the stock market a few years ago and I traded my dollars in Swiss franc, I was getting 1.1 Swiss franc per dollar, 1.14 Swiss franc per dollar. And this was a few years ago. And I'm like, wow, like I literally, like I literally see the dollar just tanking. Like it's on a downward trend. It's been on the downward momentum for a few years and it's still going on a downward momentum. It went up a little bit when they raised interest rates, but even then, the Swiss franc has been in negative interest rate territory for a long time, but they haven't done a lot of QE. They've only done foreign market interventions, which is somewhat different, but eventually they might have to do QE in Switzerland, and it's going to be a very interesting time if they do that. They're resisting because we already have inflating asset prices from foreign investments, and it's because everybody's fleeing countries where there's conflict, including right now potentially the United States, because there's a contested election and nobody knows what's going to happen come next year. What the hell is going to happen come next year? What will a real contested election, because this has never happened before, where somebody decides to fight all the way to the end to contest the election. What will happen? Will 70 million people in the United States walk out and start protests or start occupying public buildings? That could happen. You don't know. And that will be a massive uncertainty event. So, and during uncertainty, it's ugly to say this, but during uncertainty, gold and silver and all precious metals, they rise. And they rise because the dollar devalues, foreign investors flee the dollar, they pick up gold and silver, and you have a massive rise. Just like in the August period when the United States went into lockdown, the Swiss franc shot up because at this point it was still on parity with the dollar. And because I would say mainstream investors are like, yeah, it was at parity, it's going to stay at parity. And the price of gold just shot up and the price of the Swiss franc followed with it. And then the Swiss franc readjusted much more strongly towards the dollar. And I'm currently buying gold on sale, which is lucky for me, but not so lucky for people who have to buy gold with dollars. This is an interesting video to make. If you want to follow me for daily content, I post every single day. Click the like button, subscribe, bell notification, and leave a comment. It's always interesting talking to you guys. You guys ask really interesting questions. You guys ask me like, what would I do with $20,000 of gold and silver? I would actually buy a lot more gold because I don't have a 7% tax on it, but I would still buy silver and I would still buy platinum. I know a lot of my viewers don't buy platinum because they see it as expensive and it doesn't do very much. It's not super exciting, but from what I've seen and how platinum behaves, it tends to preserve wealth decently. It's not the best preserver of wealth, but it holds its own against gold and silver. And specifically in silver, it's less volatile. And it just tends to trend up slowly. It's not a bad thing. And, sometimes slow and steady wins the race. Thank you for watching. This was Dave. Dave out.